And what is the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints? That's a big one. I said, that's a big one. Do you know this morning what the riches of God's glory, same word again, the highest thought that God has for the church? Usually this is the one we just skip by. We're like, yeah, that's kind of religious terminology. Yeah, Lord, I'm just praying. No, God is praying that, among other things, that you would see what an awesome opportunity you have to be in the middle of the people that he set aside for his purposes. I don't know if you've noticed today, but the same old mystery Babylon that's always been around since the days of the Tower of Babel is assembling itself together today. Because it's never gone anywhere. It's always been working behind the scenes. The enemy is always working. He wants to be like God. So therefore, he wants one people. He wants everybody in the world really to follow him, to worship him, and to have to do what he says. And that's really happening here. And so the thing that we do to combat that is, man, we get in God's plan. Another mystery. It's called the mystery of the church, the mystery of the kingdom. We come together and we say, Lord, man, we don't know, we can't see, but the Bible says you have something beyond our understanding. If we will come together like the coals in the fire that I always talk about and just believe God simply on that, who knows what God could do? In the book of Acts, many times it says they were filled with the Spirit and then explosive things happened. On the day of Pentecost, when they first spoke in tongues and were first filled with the Spirit, explosive things happened. Thousands of people got saved. People that were there assembled from nations all over the world heard them praising God, worshiping God, got connected to God. It was something that you couldn't do on your own. What was that? They touched the glory that God has, the riches that he's planted in the saints. Today, Christianity is very individualistic. We're like, okay, I'm called, I'll do my thing. We'll pray that first verse, Lord, show me the hope of my own calling. But I tell you what, nobody has a calling that's outside of the whole calling. Everybody has a calling. Everybody's gifted to do something different. God's given everybody personal choice and personal power. We don't have a church that tries to take personal power from people. We want you to put your personal power in the whole, man. Be who you are. Be filled yourself, and then come on in here and help us get more full as a whole. Because when we do, there's a place, Paul's praying for it. I'm praying that it breaks out in the city of Ephesus, man, that you touch the glory of God in a practically real way. That when you guys get together, there's a fullness that happens, a richness that happens, a treasure that's found, that God breaks out, that people in darkness see great light. This is what the church is, guys. Man, we should be anticipating when we come together a great breakout. Great riches. We get caught up in all, taking up offerings and those kind of riches. And we need those things, and God promises those things. Thank God for them. God takes care of us. But I tell you, there's something far more rich than a dollar bill. A lot more rich than a dollar bill. That dollar bill's kind of scary, man. You ever look at the back of that thing? That's another sermon. I think that's dedicated to something else. Be careful about mammon. You cannot serve God in mammon. Be careful about getting too close to the riches of this world. Be careful. That's the glory of this world that you're touching there. Man, receive the riches of God and his glory and his kingdom. Sometimes when you do that, you'll find yourself having all kinds of extra money and extra dollar bills. You won't know where they came from. Like the cruse of oil that Elijah, went to the widow woman. The cruse never run dry. It seemed like a little miracle in the beginning, but never underestimate a little miracle. Just a little cruse, just a little container of oil. And God said, man, I'm going to touch that little container. But you know what that little container did? It fed them for months because it never ran dry. Every time they emptied it out, there was more inside. Where's the more coming from? It's kind of like Jesus and the loaves and the fishes, just got a little boy's lunch, but somehow it fed 5,000 people. How did that happen? I don't know if you can ever quite get your head around it, but you just got to get into it and accept it and believe it and say, God, I want it. I want the fullness. There could be a time, guys, when we need God in this level for our practical daily needs. Why don't we just have him today? Why don't we just set ourselves on a path to have what he has for us for someone else's needs? If we do that, I think we'll always be taken care of. Elijah said to that widow woman, make me something to eat first. And she was like, what? Who are you to come and tell me? Huh? I think some people hear this message in the church and they're trying to figure out what worth is the message of the gathering of God's people. Man, it's of great worth. Have you ever gotten together with a brother or sister when you weren't, you're just having a hard time and all of a sudden they started to fill you up? All you were doing was just fellowshipping, hanging out, talking, having coffee somewhere. But because you took the time to sit down with one of God's other saints, something miraculous happens in the filling of both of you. Sometimes we're both empty, but when we get together with Jesus, we both walk away full. How does that happen? See, we think the miracles all disappear, but man, they happen every day. We sometimes just don't realize what's happening. What are we talking about today? The fullness of God. The fullness of God. Let's start thinking bigger. Let's don't think like a small church. We're a small church on the outside, but you know how to change that? Not by doing things better on the outside. It's by getting bigger on the inside. If you do things better on the outside, you know what you'll end up? You'll end up as a church that's a lot like the world. We don't want to be like that. We want to be a church that's a lot like God. We want people to come in and say, those people have been with Jesus. I've been to